Welcome back to the Security on Happy Hour, where we bring together a group of security professionals and naturally cheery folks to discuss topics in the cybersecurity community, share knowledge, learn, teach, and exchange ideas. Now, before we get started, it's important to point out that the views and opinions expressed on the Security on Happy Hour and related websites are those of the hosts, guests, and authors, and do not necessarily reflect the official policy or position of any one company. In this episode, Lisa Bradley, Katie Noble, CRob, and I are joined by Kevin Baker to talk about cybersecurity insurance. Kevin, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Well, I work for a company called RTA Incident Response, and we are handling between 60 and 100 ransomware events every month, between 40 and 60 other kinds of events, mostly business email compromises, but a lot of others. So that's the lion's share of the business. And then I myself retired unsuccessfully about a year and a half ago as the Chief Information Security Officer of Westfield Insurance. So I was in insurance, been in security for about 21 years, in insurance company for about 10 years, and then retired. And now I work for an incident response company. And what I'm building is the team that answers the question, how do we make sure this never happens again? So the cyber strategy and defense team right now working, I've got about 50 clients globally, and staying very busy, and again, looking for that day when I actually retire.
So for our audience's sake, what is cybersecurity insurance?
Well, it is not so different from any other insurance policy in that it is a way for you to transfer risk. You've done it with your house, with your car, and with your company. You transfer risk. Like I'm not sure I'm going to always succeed here, so I want some kind of mitigating control for that. I want someone else to help me bear the cost of this. Now, we understand that really well for cars, because most people have at least dented the car, right? You do some damage, but you don't worry about it because somebody's going to pay. And then, and so this is really not that much different than that. You're going to do that for some cybersecurity reasons, but that has evolved over time. Whereas back in the 2000s, it looked one way. Today, it looks very different. So it is a way for you to recoup costs that you suffered as a result of being hacked, whether it is direct damages or lawsuits or fines or notification costs or anything like that. Does that answer? Is that good?
That's a good answer. Yeah.
You touched on a couple dates, Kevin. Is this cybersecurity insurance a new thing? Has it been around a while? And has it evolved? It sounds like.
Oh, definitely, it has evolved. I mean, the first cyber policy was just for cover incidental costs, and it wasn't that long ago. It was in I think late 90s, but it was very, people would say in those days, and I can remember when I was at Diebold back in those days, cyber insurance. Well, that's really getting out there, and people go, oh no, this is going to be a huge industry, and you kind of, what is that all about? Well, it's risk transference, and you come to understand that you get the ISC squared version. You get the, you get the classic textbook. This is what cyber insurance is. It's risk transference. But we walked around for more than a decade, and the business went nowhere. So as long as there was not sufficient drivers to make cyber insurance really something special, it was really a rider. And in those days, people would claim on other insurance policies to get some kind of mitigation for an event. They would try and file it on their business interruption or maybe physical damage or whatever they could get away with. But this was called silent cyber. So yeah, that's really a cyber thing. But it's he filed it on this policy over here. Some of them were paid, some of them weren't. As time went by, though, the threat changed, and that began to change the industry.
You talk about it like a policy. Is it like, you mentioned car insurance and like house insurance. Is it just like a policy like that?
Yeah, it's really no different than that. It doesn't talk about vendors, it talks about this is what you're responsible for. And then back in the old days, in the 2000s, the early 2000s, you get about 5 questions, well, can you spell your name? Yeah, are you breathing? Yeah, okay, we'll sell you this policy. Because what they were protecting you from was really if you get sued. I mean, there's a lot of, errors and omissions insurance. They kind of looked at it like that. So if you get sued because you lost somebody's data, then we'll pay off for that. But then over time, states began to mandate laws that for privacy. So if you lose the data of John Brown, then you must notify him you lost that data. So that became a law, and that's expensive. Have you ever had to have one of those done? Like a cheap one is 30 grand, right? So, it could go into the hundreds of thousands of dollars. What was it? Yahoo lost like 4 billion records or something. I mean, that notification costs, I don't know, what do you do with that? You paint it on the face of the moon. I don't know how you reach all those people, but yeah, that was an expensive thing. And that's what the insurance was geared toward. But then as time went by, and because those were the days of I hack you for creds, or it was really just research and development for the years to come. But as criminals decided, I'm going to steal your data, and then I'm going to send you a ransom note, and if you don't give me money for this, then I'm going to do something, right? So that didn't work too well, because when you exchange money, you're probably going to get caught, or companies would just say, no, I'm not going to do that. And it wasn't lucrative for the bad guys. So they went after credit cards in those days. What can I monetize? What can I monetize?
Right.
It's a business on both sides of the fence, right? It's a business on insurance side. It's a business in crime.
So you go to like Allstate and get the insurance, or do you go and get it from, like the company that you're getting software from?
No, you can't get real insurance from a software company. They can give you warranties, they can give you, guarantees, but you'll try collecting on them. You need to be an insurance company, right? And they will insure you with a policy, and it'll be related to what you went to them for and what they could make money on. But here's what I'm trying to say about the evolution of the criminals and how that made the insurance evolve. It's hard to steal data and get it out and then get money for it. So we just went for credit cards. And then one fine day, a criminal realized, what if I don't move the data? What if I just leave it sitting right where it is and encrypt it? I don't care. I don't want your data, but you can't have it either until you pay me. That was early, right? And there were some of those instances, and companies paid or didn't pay it, or said, yeah, I don't care. I'll take the bad press. And some of them weathered it. It didn't really get teeth until Bitcoin. Digital currency enables crime. And I'm trying to say that not as a good thing or as a bad thing, as a reality. It has enabled more crime than it has legitimate business, because now the kidnapper doesn't have to show up at the graveyard with the kid in the trunk. Now he just says, pay me or die. And some of them die. Our figures right now, company that I work with has probably some of the best security intelligence regarding ransomware and the payment of ransomware and those criminals. And we see that 38% of the companies that get severe ransomware go out of business within 2 years. It happens outside the news cycle. It happens outside. It's just so much of a burden that they can't recover. Some businesses, and here are the ones that I see go fast: temporary worker businesses. Now, why would that be? Well, because the thing that is most important for temporary worker businesses is you got to pay them every week. But if you can't do payroll for 2 weeks, Where do you think all those people went?
That's
To their competitors, to your competitors. And so
Interesting.
you just, in the time to recover, the recovery point objective and the recovery time objective do not work out for them. They go away. I have seen insurance agencies that a man and a wife built over a period of 30 years. And they also became financial advisors. So they became a fiduciary. So they had extra responsibilities. They got a ransomware attack. They were gone in 6 months. Boom, 30 years worth of work down the tube. So we want to transfer the risk. Insurance is the way to do it. How do you get it today? Not like you did yesterday. You're not going to fill out a 10-question questionnaire to get cyber insurance. I'm paused to get oxygen and give you a chance to.
I was just thinking about the people that would get this kind of insurance. It used to be, it would seem like that based on the kinds of risks there were in the past, it would be very select companies. Now,
Mom
would
and
I
Pop
need
Still select
Bakery.
companies.
well,
Yeah,
but I'm
but-
wondering though, I mean, based on what you were just talking about, right? Small businesses can get affected by these ransomware attacks. In fact, they're probably
Probably
more
too.
lucrative, right? Because they're gonna have to pay, right? They don't have a choice.
Well, the company that I work for has paid out over $150 million in ransoms in the past 14 months.
Holy crap.
Wow.
Ransomware is a $6 trillion business over 2020 and 2021.
So
$6 trillion.
I don't
We're
know.
talking real money now. And
Question. So
Okay.
completely off track here, but how do you feel about like the government saying that they're going to make it illegal to pay the ransom?
well, that is a risk. That's absolutely a risk. Sure, we'll make my end of the business grow because people are deciding, okay, we're actually going to have to build a security program. But whereas before it's like, yeah, buy more insurance. Insurance is hard to get right now. There are major carriers that will not even give you a quote unless you can verify that you're using multi-factor authentication for all remote access, that you have offline backups, and that you have some semblance of a program. They're picking out things that they're saying you must have. So the big changer for the insurance industry, for the good and then for the bad, was that ransomware had anonymous payment. Now we're making money. The bad guys have never made this much money. They never made this anywhere near this amount of money on credit cards. Selling data is a nit compared to ransomware right now.
So are the insurance companies like that would normally provide this like losing business or not because it's so
They're
expensive?
not losing
like,
business.
well,
They
right.
got-
So they're
They
keeping
got
it,
more
but people are
business than they
paying
got.
maybe big
Everybody
money.
wants to get it. Everybody wants it now.
Right, but then I would say like the since the chances of it happening are higher now, it's got to cost so much to be able to do that.
Well,
Mhm.
consider this, that insurance is based on big numbers. It's all actuarial science. The insurance industry has always had a huge part to play in our society. Really, we don't realize it until I got into the insurance business. I've been overseas all over the world, and I started going, to India, into Thailand, into Indonesia. And it's like, why are there so many unfinished businesses here? You ever notice that? You go and there's high rise halfway done, and there's scores of them across these big cities. Why? No surety business. That's insurance. You got to put down a bond to make sure this building gets finished. That doesn't exist in most of the rest of the world, at least in the third world, right? And pardon if I use that term wrong. I'm not very PC, but the fact is, insurance has helped to build our society. Our houses are safer because of insurance. Our cars are safer because of insurance. And eventually the law, the big numbers, the beginning, okay, I'll sell insurance cheap to Baker because he's been driving 50 years. He's never wrecked a car, never had a DUI. Your insurance is cheap. So now I can drive sports cars and afford it when I couldn't when I was 25. And they said, a red Mustang, forget it. You can't afford that insurance, right? So now I can. That's the law of big numbers. Doesn't exist with cyber insurance.
Yeah, I
Well,
remember.
or
Doesn't
is
exist.
it the more money or I mean, not more money, but the better you could show your security practices are in the company, then hopefully the lower the costs would be.
Well, there was a
right?
space of about 5 years where that was absolutely true. Now,
Years.
now it's not. Now it's, you better just see if you can get some insurance,
Well, so
period.
that's
And you're not
interesting.
going to get 50 million. You're not going to get 50 million. You're not going to get 20 million. You're probably, if you can make a really good case, you're going to get 10 million.
So
Well, we paid out single ransom this year that was way north of that.
So, moral of the story. Go ahead, Josh.
no, I was just going to say, so all the things you talked about, right? Insurance making, so many things that consumers use today better because of the actuary science, right, behind it, right? Because they figured out that if you do these things, you're going to have less risk. I can offer you still a lower policy because there is some risk associated with it. But you figured out what those things are, what those elements are, components that made risk more adverse.
Yeah.
But what you're just saying now about cybersecurity insurance sounds like it's sort of the opposite, right? I know you should have two-factor authentication. You should have, backups, remote backups. You should have all, secure software, but it doesn't matter because the criminals are finding their way in and they're performing ransomware attacks regardless.
Well, let me tell you this. And I can say this with absolutely no fear of ever being contradicted. If people do what we say, they will not get hacked. I don't believe in it's not a matter of when, if, it's a matter of when. 10 years at my last job, no digital loss. And it's not just a formula, it's a mindset and a strategy. You can prepare for it.
So that's
part of what prepare for it.
I guess
and that's where the insurance companies have to try and make their play.
Yeah.
We want to go back to just risk transference for known costs. We don't want this wildly fluctuating thing that there's no way. I mean, if you take a business that is 173 years old and you shut it down for 2 weeks, there is no recovery from that in many respects, right? So I say, and whenever I get a chance to the insurance company, don't abdicate that position you have as someone who makes things better. But today, if you're going to get a set of circumstances with your policy, they're going to pay that and nothing more. So when that bad day happens, this is what it's like. Let me give you a day in the life of I've been had, right? You wake up and 10, this is a real case, 10,000 servers are encrypted. The business can't pay payroll, can't pay, no accounts payable, no accounts receivable, dead in the water. Where's our backups? In the data center, we have lots of backups on disk, online, with Windows passwords. They're encrypted. How much is the ransom? $60 million. $60 million. They didn't pay $60 million, but they paid. And then they had to okay, here's your key. Now you have to go decrypt 10,000 servers.
Right. Yeah.
Right.
And they're not going to help you with it.
No. But they have tech support for that.
So
it's
there's
fine.
like, you've spent all your money on the policy. Now a line of demarcation comes in. Anything past this is called betterment, and they don't pay it. They don't pay it. They don't pay. Why? Because they're bleeding cash from 10 years worth of policies that were overbroad and that they gave to everyone, to people who literally, I have a client who's been running his business on Fox Pro, running on MS-DOS 6.
I know the best Fox Pro developer in 3 states.
Yeah, and he got ransomware. He paid. I mean, he had his like Cadillac insurance. This guy had no security, couldn't spell security, but they had to pay, and they had to pay, and they had to pay, and they had to pay. So the big players are shaken out, Some of them won't even quote to you unless you can prove you're doing it. So we are unfortunately in a space of where, like, I don't know, what was it like to do insurance, property and casualty just before the Civil War and during the Civil War? That was probably pretty chaotic. Well, we are in that kind of era with cyber insurance where don't sell any more of that insurance. You know, make it harder, raise the bar, and so we're going to see that fluctuate. I'm beginning to see some carriers actually have a betterment clause. It's not big. Here's $100K to, I don't know, for grief counseling for your IT department or something. I don't know. There's like a betterment, but it's not like really significant, but it's there. And I see them beginning to experiment with that. And whenever I get the chance, I say, look, you should totally be part of making this better. And just like you have with everything else, when I appeal to their history. And I think that's what we've got to depend on for cyber insurance. There is so much, and everything that I've said to you is like my opinion.
Yeah.
But I'm giving you that opinion from someone who sees what these companies are going through day to day. I see orthopedic, people who make limbs for people shut down. Little Catholic schools and little other, religious schools of all types. The cruelty of these people is just unbelievable. They don't care. It's money. They just put you in there and out comes money out the other end. There is a task force that has been, and I'm going to shift here to the problems of doing this, if you don't mind. There's a task force being formed by presidential executive order, which apparently you have one of those about every 45 minutes for the last 10 years. But it is getting together some commercial interests, of which RTA is one of them, because of the amount of ransoms that we pay, and OFAC and FinCEN, not just the FBI. So it's the FBI. Yeah, who cares?
They don't know how to do financial stuff. Trust me. I know those guys.
Here's what it means if you work for the FBI on a task force. You tell them everything you know, and they say, I'm sorry, we cannot comment on an active case, right? But we've got OFAC in there and FinCEN. Why does that make a difference? Well, what do you think would happen if we paid a ransom to someone that turned it out to be Iran? That is an OFAC violation, which they could come in.
Oh my God, can they sanction you? And they can get you for OFAC violations.
They would seize your assets. They would seize your assets. It's just like, it's like kiddie porn. The existence of something, boom, everybody's guilty. I have everything, and you can try and get it back from me. Only this is your company's assets. So we don't take any chances that we would would be paying anyone who's on the sanctioned list or is on a terrorist, which means we can't pay to any group that's using dry decks. You ever seen dry decks? You ever heard that word? Heck yeah, it's all over the place. It's been around for years and years. Well, those guys are on the sanctioned list, so we can't pay them. So we are forced. On one hand, we've got a client who just wants to make payroll. He's got families that are dependent on him, that he's built this up for years and years. He's got to make payroll. He's between that and the end of his business. And we can't pay the ransom for that guy because somebody used a particular piece of software. And OFAC says if we do that, we will be sanctioned. So this task force hopefully can address that, because I can tell you that American businesses are going out of business. Is that really for the betterment of the American people, that we're going to put our own businesses out because that piece of software is on a sanction list? Those are the kind of questions that need to be handled now by the industry, by the security industry and the government, which we all just love working alongside the government.
They're here to help.
Yeah, they're here to help. But if we can make some progress there to make it safe, maybe we can
Katie almost
save
fell out
some
of her
resources.
chair.
Yeah, I keep thinking we had we had a session where we talked about like burnout in the security world and how to stay sane, and a lot of the times we're like, yeah, bad people exist, they do things, we stress about getting more zero day, but this is the really sad side of what the bad guys in security can do when you're talking about someone who had their business for their whole life, worked it, and then could lose it overnight just because of something like this, or schools not be able to function, or hospitals and people not being able to get medical care. Like, it brings the reality in just a little bit deeper. So so when you think about that, like, is your opinion that yes, it makes sense to get this insurance to be able to best protect you? It might not even be like, if, but when this happens to you.
Well, I really believe that you can prepare and that you needn't. Remember, if we go back to the principle that this is part of risk management, insurance should be risk transference for a known risk that you can quantify. If you can't quantify that risk, okay, insurance is not your solution. What you need to do is build a program. What are the things that are the most likely thing to happen is that somebody's going to click on an email or on a link, and you're going to get a piece of malware, and it's going to be a dropper that's going to run across your environment, and it's going to it's going to encrypt everything, and it's so smart, it's going to look for your backups, and it knows where they are, and it's going to even call the help desk of your cloud provider so they can get into your backups, and do that. You can stop all that. But multi-factor authentication for all remote access, multi-factor authentication for all administrative tasks, definitely offline copies of your backups that are disconnected from the domain, and a good EDR. Now, this is as close to me acting like a salesman as I'm going to get here. And I don't sell software. We use an EDR, a real EDR, and not a retooled antivirus with the phrase EDR on it. I mean, a real EDR. And I'm going to say there's 3 or 4 of them. We use one that we can't break through. Our best people, came from our company, came from the NSA. I mean, from the military, some of the best guys in the business. We're about 400 strong now. Couldn't get through what we use. There's a couple other ones I used at Westfield that was also very good. But it doesn't matter how much lipstick you could put on a pig. If you're signature based and not AI driven in the cloud, you are not going to stop ransomware. Now, I have to admit that I have run into an organization that is huge, a huge organization, and they are not using what I would call a real EDR. Matter of fact, you would laugh if I told you what they were using. So I'm not going to say that. But their controls are so tight from layer to layer to layer to layer. Their fast detect, fast react implementation is so good. They've had 6 ransomware attacks, and they stopped every one of them. They did not pay any ransom. So I believe if you build it right, you can be protected from what is the most common incident. There will be edge cases, but if you, and it doesn't take rocket science to do this, to bulletproof yourself from ransomware. They're not trying to steal your credit cards anymore. They already got them, right? And they're not making any money on them. They're making money on ransomware. So if you prepare for ransomware, which means you're going to have to educate your people. You're going to have more than just a quarterly newsletter on security. You're going to have to really get into the guts of your culture of your company and make them say that, look, security is just another aspect of product quality. And our product, whether it is a service or a piece of software or anything, a car, if it is not secure, it's not a quality product. and tap into the quality consciousness of people that they would like to have some point of creativity that puts them into part of that process that produces a really cool product. Can't be that way if you can hack it. I'm not going to make my name in security selling security cameras from Harbor Freight. Yeah, you've got to put out a quality product, and it means it needs to be a secure product. I think there's some great ones out there.
Lisa was wondering, you mentioned this term EDR. Could you maybe explain that just a bit for the audience?
Sure. Endpoint detection and response is what that stands for.
Okay.
And it is. Am I allowed to say vendor names here?
Sure.
Yeah. It's
We're
like
not endorsing them. They're just an example.
CrowdStrike, SentinelOne, Carbon Black, if configured right. But I got clients that got nailed big time for ransomware, but they were using Carbon Black for whitelisting and not for anything else. But anything sitting that close to ring zero, it can stop something that it's never seen before. But if it's signature based or it's dependent on some threat intelligence feed, come on now. Those feeds do not happen fast enough to protect
That's
you.
just a shell script.
Came out a minute ago.
Scrapes
right?
Google.
Yeah, but SentinelOne, that is what we use exclusively. We have our own SOC. We're monitoring probably over 200,000 endpoints using SentinelOne. We are a partner with SentinelOne, and we add white glove on top of what they offer, and we're the third largest reseller of it. But that's the other end of the business. I'm at the end of the business where we've already saved their bacon. They've got a modern EDR tool in there, and they're looking at me and they're saying, what else do we need to do?
Mm-hmm.
And that's where my job comes in. I tell them, okay, this is what you need to do. And oh, did you get that new cyber insurance questionnaire? Yeah, it's this thick. It's a spreadsheet with 21 tabs. When I bought this policy, it was 3 questions, and one of them was, what was my mother's maiden name? But now I need help, so I literally get paid helping people fill out questionnaires, which I have done too many questionnaires.
It was all the answers to your secret questions, wasn't it?
Yeah.
So if you're lucky enough to be able to get cybersecurity insurance, or you have a policy, what typically is covered by that? Just very broadly.
Well,
what types of services do you get for that?
Things that you can get on a cyber insurance policy. All the usual. If you get sued, notification costs, a system restore. So they'll take you back. Think of it just like a car wreck. You can insure everything right up to the accident happened and what happened as a result of the accident. They'll fix that. So if your machines are destroyed, let's say that they may burn out or something, they will physically replace them. They won't let you upgrade. But if you were running NT, they can't get you NT, so you might get an accidental upgrade, right? There's still a lot of
hey, critical infrastructure, man.
Yeah, that's right. So they're going to put you back the way that you were, but not one bit better, unless that one bit better is accidental. So that means pretty much recovery from the event. Now, ransomware is another thing. That's extortion. So it's going to be bundled with that same kind of language about, it's more like the errors and omissions thing in reverse. If somebody commits this against you, if someone threatens you this way, then we'll pay so much. And actually that's kind of a gray area. Here's when you have an event and you say, okay, I have insurance and I'm going to file a claim. You call your, believe me, it's not a phone app. You're not going to report this with a phone app, right? You're not going to take a picture of a server and send it in. There's some process to this, right? So you call your insurance company, and the first thing that happens is they give you a list of law firms. Now they're going to pay for that law firm, but they're also going to give you, this is our stable of law firms. These guys are called breach coaches, and they're going to come in and they're going to be your advocate between the carrier and the client is the breach coach. And they do, like a good security professional, they take a fiduciary responsibility for the client, not for the carrier. But they get all their business from the carrier. Now, human nature being what it is, you can read into that whatever you want. If it's a good breach coach, though, you are way ahead of the game. You're way ahead of the game if you get a good firm, and they drive the show. So the incident response team, here's another bunch of, here's the list. So let's say, you get this law firm as your breach coach, and that breach coach recommends the incident response firm. They're really controlling who the incident response firm is going to be, and because they need efficiency. They need this to work right. They need you to know what you're doing, and they need you to not screw up, and they need you to shut up. They need you to not talk, because they want everything underprivileged. So you work for them. The incident response team doesn't work for the client. They work for the breach coach and the client. It's a three-way contract. And believe me, the breach coach is calling all the shots. And at some point, a decision is made. Are we going to pay? Or are we going to try and restore from lousy backups? Or are we just going to go into another business, or whatever is on your business continuity plan? Monster.com, right? That might be it. But then you go through the incident, and that breach coach watches everything. And there'll usually be 2 or 3 of their lawyers on every call. And then you work through the decision. Are we going to pay or not pay? Say you decide to pay, you pay. And at the time that the ransom the payment goes out, the decryptor key comes back, and there's a lot of process there. Proof of life and all the stuff, very parallel to kidnapping. You don't get a finger, but believe it or not, it might be a phone app. And then you can prove that, okay, we're actually giving you a decryptor key, and then it's yours. Bad guy's not going to help you. Breach coach is not going to help you. Insurance company's not going to help you. The incident response company is now got your fate in their hands. How fast can they decrypt your environment? You want to help? That would be a good idea. How about giving us your best and brightest from your IT department? How about having an incident response plan? Well, this has never happened. You never planned for this at all. The ones where they have planned for it, and they know what we're doing, boom, 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 boom. 3 days, you're back in business. From I got the notice to I'm running my business, 3 days. Don't know what it is, 2 weeks, maybe 3 weeks. Is that past your recovery time objective?
So, okay. So if you can't get cyber insurance, if you're a company and you can't get cyber insurance for whatever reason, what are some things that you can do to protect yourself and your customers?
Well, everything that we do as a business. So you need to build a formalized, in some form, even if you're a very small company, build a formalized program. You need to understand the risk. And this is the first place that business owners mistake their role, is they think that they don't have to understand the risk. They do have to understand the risk. And because until they do understand the risk, they are not going to think about it in business terms. Here's the business. To be in this business, you thought you had to be this tall to be in this business. Well, apparently you have to be this tall. It's generally not a huge difference in investment, but it just changed your 5-year plan. Get over it, build a program, and stay in business. But that means you're going to have a modern AI-driven EDR. You should have some serious security monitoring. You can outsource that. You need to have offline backups, and you need to have multi-factor authentication. You need to just be sure you know who you're talking to, and that not only for your people to use multi-factor authentication, but if you have integrations with partners, clients, customers, every one of those integrations needs to be protected too. You need to shut out, you need to recreate what has been destroyed, the idea of a perimeter. That means, oh, wait a minute, the weakest link there is my people. I'm going to have to invest in my people. Yeah, you're going to have to invest in your people. That you're going to have to do training. You're going to have to make it fun. You're going to have to make people want to be secure. And if you can make it cool to be secure, people will want to be cool bad enough that they'll do it. You know, but it's a culture change that is worth money. It's worth money. If you invest that money, that increase of 10 to 15% your budget for, say, 3 years, you will get more back from that than you could ever imagine. But we're still in the position as security professionals of not being able to prove a negative.
Yup.
But
that's the painful part, right?
Yeah. What is the future of cyber insurance? I think right now it's dubious. You know, it's going to continue on in some form. But as was mentioned earlier, if governments say you're not allowed to pay a ransom, people are going to either react by fixing what's broken about their business, or they're not. And if they don't, they're going to go out of business eventually. You know, eventually the companies that are safe rise to the top. You know, I never hesitate to bank with my banker because, you know, it doesn't matter what happens there. You know, boom, I'm good to go. 24 hours, never lose anything. The companies that I buy from, and I mean, we buy so much stuff here at this house online that my biggest problem is getting rid of all the cardboard, right? And we've never lost a penny doing it. Yeah, we've never lost a penny from you know, reliable vendors. If you go out there on the edge, okay, you might, you know, we didn't get elk antlers for chews for our dogs from a company, you know, so they bilked us out of some small amount of money. But I know where to go to. If I go to Amazon, I know what connects all that. I know what OpenID Connect is. I know how they pass the security on down the line. So you can do it. Who needs to buy it? I don't know, anybody connected to the digital economy. If you're a business that connects to the digital economy, you need to have some measure of risk transference for cyber. But I wouldn't count on that being your plan. Oh, I'm older and I can afford more insurance. That's not a plan, right? You need to have a program. You need to have a reasonable amount of risk transference to insurance. You'd expect to have to prove what you're doing. That means no more tribal knowledge and heroic efforts. You're actually going to have to say what you do and do what you say. And that's something we've been saying since, I don't know, Deming.
So you actually have to document things. That's crazy.
Because that's what they're going to ask for.
Yeah. Well, but I think actually you just kind of summarized what I was thinking far better than I could have. I think this is an area that a lot of companies are probably thinking they know something about, but until they talk to an expert like yourself, I don't think they really understand the ramifications of what it means to get insurance, what the impact is if you don't have it, what happens if you do have it and you're somehow breached, or you have to use it. I think there's a lot to unpack here, and really, I appreciate you coming on to share a bit of your knowledge. Just I can tell this is just the peak of your knowledge around this topic. People are going to learn a lot. They're going to ask a lot more questions. So thanks.
Thank you for inviting me. It was it's been an unexpected journey. You know, I feel like a hobbit. You know, I never thought I was going to go into security. And once I got into security, I never thought I was going to go into insurance, but here I am.
Well, thanks again, Kevin. I appreciate you coming on the show. Thanks, everybody. See you all soon.